Now, this.
The big thing.
The starting gun has been fired, and at last, Conservative MPs are putting themselves forwards to be the next leader of the party after years of hard work and preparation. Who will be the one to overcome the hurdles and hop, skip and jump their way to the finish line?
Once you've set the hair running,
the running costs
provide a running commentary.
It means that they would be running very hot indeed.
It is perhaps the longest running scandal in British politics.
Those that arrive illegally cannot be expected to jump.
We're going to jump.
It's not for me to throw out a random figure.
To start trying to throw some of them to the wolves.
Throw caution to the wind. I'm not going to throw more taxpayers' money.
I'm putting myself forward to be leader of the party, and that is why I ask for your support.
I think it is important that we use this period now to listen to the voters.
The country actually is instinctively conservative.
Well, look, this was a devastating defeat.
This is not Big Brother is watching you. This is Suella Braverman beaming in.
I'm doing this not for myself, but for the future.
It's about some deep, painstaking work.
This is much more important than a podcast, I'm afraid. Don't tell Matt Chorley.
I've no doubt that after years of training, focus and dedication, they'll bring back many gold medals. Although, to be honest, I'm probably not the first person they want to hear advice from on how to win.
Yeah, they're all limbering up, stretching, thrusting. James Cleverly, the Shadow Home Secretary. Dame Priti Patel, the former Home Secretary. Victoria Atkins, the Shadow Health Secretary, who's today just ruled herself out of the race. Robert Jenrick, the former Immigration Minister. Suella Braverman, the former Home Secretary. Kemi Badenoch, the Shadow Home Secretary. Mel Stride, the Shadow Work and Pension Secretary. Tom Tugendhat, the former Security Minister. And, of course, Rishi Sunak with some Olympic-based content from PMQs yesterday. So far, only James Cleverly and Tom Tugendhat have officially announced their running. But who will follow before nominations close on Monday? In a moment, we'll hear from some of those supporting the candidates, and we'll get some tips on what it takes to win from some Olympians turned politicians. But first, I'm joined in the commentary box by Nigel Fletcher from the Centre for Opposition Studies. Hello, Nigel.
Morning, Matt.
Nominations are open. They're all just starting to limber up for what is quite the marathon between now and the end of the race in November. It's quite a long old contest, isn't it?
It is, and it's the longest one they've had since Michael Howard had his long goodbye in 2005. And they're using the same device, which is that we'll get to judge their sort of athletic prowess on the floor of the Conservative Party conference, because they're going to narrow it down to 4 contenders by that time, and then they'll get to compete in front of the vast crowds in the arena there, which worked quite well last time, because going into that, you had David Davis, who was considered to be the favourite in that leadership election, but then sort of perhaps the sort of younger legs of David Cameron came sort of running up on the inside at the Conservative Party conference and overtook him with a pretty spectacular speech. So that was a real moment at the Conservative Party conference where David Davis underperformed, and you almost saw it in real time with Cameron sort of overtaking him on the inside.
And so what does the history, particularly of being in opposition and picking a leader, it's obviously slightly, the lessons are possibly slightly different when you're picking a prime minister. What should those limbering up on the starting line right now be thinking about whether it's pacing themselves, what direction to take, what techniques to use? What does history tell us are the ways to be successful or otherwise?
Well, the big lesson that people always cite is that the favourite never wins. And that's not quite true. There have been many leadership elections in which the favourite has gone in and then won. I mean, you think of Boris Johnson. To some extent, even Liz Truss, there was, some doubt about whether she was going to make it onto the ballot. But by the time she got towards the membership, it was pretty clear that in that last sort of those last laps of the leadership election, that she was ahead and remained ahead all the way through. So that's something that I think they should perhaps disregard as being, do you want to be ahead? I think about what Danny Finkelstein always says on how to win an election, which is peaking too early. Well, you need to, peak at all, and so that there's nothing wrong with sort of getting out ahead and staying out ahead. If we're going to sort of extend this metaphor, which I think you're going to do for the next half an hour.
Yeah, it's very much so. It's all about the extended metaphor.
So yeah, I think if you can get ahead and stay ahead, then that's great. The thing I would say though, when it comes to this race is, do they really want the job? I mean, this is the sort of big thing that's underlying all of this, which is that the job they're really applying for here, the medal that they're all after, is getting to be Conservative Party leader in a situation where the party is in its worst state that it's pretty much ever been. They've got fewer MPs than they've ever had. They've got their worst vote share ever. The chances of them being able to go on from this to become Prime Minister, which presumably is their ambition, are really quite slim. It is what William Hague described as the night shift of British politics. He sort of took over in the wake of a Labour landslide, did the night shift, but pretty much knew it would be a difficult job to overtake Labour in that short time. Everyone gets sort of hung up with the fact that Keir Starmer came back after just 4 years since the last election. But actually, that was after Labour had gone through this sort of internecine warfare through Jeremy Corbyn and then had Ed Miliband prior to that. So they got all of that out of their system. The question for all of these candidates is, do you really want to be that person who just has to sort of go through this terrible job, getting all the worst bits of being leader of the opposition without the prospect at the end of becoming Prime Minister? As I've rather sort of self-referencingly put it, do they want to appear in the next version of my book about the not quite Prime Ministers? Because that seems to be the most likely outcome for anyone who actually wins this contest. So if we're using the sort of athletics metaphor, it might be best for some of them to put in a good showing and come a good second, because that will place them in a good position in the shadow cabinet. It will put them in a strong position so that perhaps after another election loss, that they might then be seen as a good candidate to take over when they've got a better prospect of perhaps taking office. But it's a question that no one really asks. The matter of timing in all of these things is really important. William Hague always dismisses this idea that he should have waited. Everyone always says, why didn't you just hang back? You were very young. You could have actually been leader a bit later. Why didn't you do that? And he says, well, for one thing, I don't think anyone could have held the party together as well as he could. And he also, of course, makes the point that you have to grab your opportunity when it comes along. There's no guarantee that in 4 or 5 years' time that you will be in that position. So I think these candidates will be assessing their chances of, first of all, getting to the starting blocks. One of them has already failed to do that by the look of it. The bar is slightly lower in numbers in terms of nominations, but proportionally it's actually higher for them to get the nominations from the parliamentary party. So just getting to the starting blocks is the first challenge they've got. And then once they set off, they're then going to have to, as you say, pace themselves for what's actually quite a long leadership election.
Yeah, this is turning into quite a long metaphor. Nigel, really appreciate that. Nigel Fletcher from the Centre for Opposition Studies joining us via Zoom, and I can see he's carefully positioned my book just over his shoulder. So I feel like I'm duty bound to tell you that his book is also excellent, the Not Quite Prime Ministers, all the leaders of the opposition who never made it to the top job.